Hi, grade 12s. Okay, so just to recap, our topic for 2021 for the PAT is life after COVID, but remember to focus on technology, and also we have decided in class that we are all going to pick education. I've mentioned, and I want to remind you, that if you don't feel comfortable or you feel more comfortable with focusing on another sector, you can go through the possible sectors in your learner guidelines, and just let me know if you have picked another topic so that I can help you and guide you and give you some resources and so on. But for this purpose, we are going to stick to education as an example of the PAT topic. Okay, so I have open here in front of me the assessment rubric. We are going to work according to the assessment rubric step by step. So we are going to work focused in that sense. So the first thing we have here is the task definition and the 4 marks you get for the task definition. The first point is given to what is the current situation. The next one is the focus of the investigation. Then how will you go about the investigation considering the PAT requirements, and lastly, the target audience. So I'm going to go to my research document now. And just to quickly show you here, this is the document you should have with you. I have posted a link in the comments section of the YouTube channel to the drive with these documents on. Otherwise, I have given it to you on the classroom network in class, and you should have all these documents in your folder as we speak. So the research document can be found here in the PAT folder, phase 1 folder, and I'm now going to switch over to this research report. Okay, so here we have the research report open in front of us. I'm just going to close the navigation pane. And if you don't want the comments here in the right-hand section, you can go to review. And here under single markup, you can just select no markup, and then you just have your full page. Okay, so before we start with the task definition, I just want to ask you to click on your file tab here on the left-hand side. Go to info, so that's file tab, then info, and here under properties, click on advanced properties. So just quickly again, I clicked on file, info, properties, and then I clicked on advanced properties. Then you should get this screen open in front of you. If you might get one of the other tabs open in front of you, you can just click on summary here. And there I want you to type in the topic of the PAT. So you will type something like life after COVID, with life after COVID, technology with life after COVID, and education, something like that, okay? And then your name and surname over here, and the rest should be fine. And you can say, okay, and we are going to go back to our Word document here, okay? Then the second thing is, now we want to focus on our task definition, right? So on the 4th page of the document I've given you, you have the task definition. And as you can see, those very same points here that you get marks for on the assessment rubric. So you can jump right in. I'm going to ask you to delete these questions as you go along. So firstly, you are going to type a paragraph on what is the current situation. The world is facing a global pandemic where with COVID, because of this, we are not allowed to have a certain amount of people in a room together. We weren't allowed to travel for a while. The schools were closed. And we continue to face this issue with social distancing and the limitation of the amount of people allowed to be in a class, etc., etc. And then you can also mention in what is the current situation that we have had to make alternative plans to complete schoolwork, to continue with our education in terms of teaching and learning and things like that. Okay, so all of that you can put in your current situation. please be careful not to talk about solutions yet, okay? So don't say anything about we were added to WhatsApp groups, we're attending Zoom meetings, we've got lessons that they put on TV on the certain channels for you, YouTube channels, videos, anything like that. Don't mention any of the solutions that we have. It's just what is the current situation. We can't do our teaching and learning as we used to. We have been faced with this problem that we can't be in the same room with our teachers at all times, and we have had to make other plans. Okay, so then when you're done with your paragraph there on what the current situation is, you delete that heading and question there, please. Then the next one, what will the focus of my investigation be? Here you can start with the my investigation will be focused specifically on finding ways to overcome the problem of education in terms of finding alternative solutions using technology to continue our education, something like that, okay? Then when you're done, delete the question. How will I go about the investigation considering the PAT requirements? With this one, I'm going to help you out a little bit. In your folder, you have a PowerPoint presentation called task definition. You can open that. You can also use this to help you with ideas. Again, what is the current situation, or what is the problem? What is the focus? And there on the 5th slide, this section you can copy almost exactly to your research report. All I want you to make sure is if you copy this now, that you change this part, okay? So you will be setting up and gathering questionnaires from whom? And considering that we are focusing on teaching and learning and education, you are going to say that you will either get your questionnaires from learners, so your peers, or teachers, okay? So pick one of the two rather than stick with that, okay? So you copy and paste, and then you just change this bit. Okay, back to my research report. Remember to delete the question when you've pasted your information there. And then the last one, who is the target audience? So make sure you pick someone there that's realistic. If you think that this is going to help teachers, your report will be focused on teachers and how they can use technology to help them continue teaching through COVID, then that's fine. And after, remember, one of the examples I used was that this thing of making videos for your PAT is not something that I used to do. And even though COVID will be over at some stage and we will have full classes again someday, I'm going to continue with videos because I feel like I've learned something through this. So it's life after COVID. I'm going to continue with videos. So do you want to present these findings to teachers to show them how they can teach using technology? Or do you want to focus on learners and tell them how they can continue learning with these problems that we've had with COVID and how these things have been made easier? Think about the WhatsApp groups too. I think we will now forever be on WhatsApp groups with our teachers and other learners because we have found that it's actually extremely useful, even if we can maybe all of us be in a class at the same time. Okay, so who will your target audience be? And you can also, again, go and look at the slideshow with the task definition on how to start the sentence, but you can simply say, my findings will be presented to my peers, my whoever. And again, as I said, maybe just go and take a quick look at the task definition here and the sentence that I've made up here. My research will be focused specifically on presenting information on life after COVID to learners or teachers or whomever. Okay. So please use this PowerPoint also to help you. Okay, so that's your task definition. And then you'll see here, there's a heading focus question. And then just quickly to go to the assessment rubric to check. The next thing on my assessment rubric is the focus question. It must be a clearly phrased, concise question. The question must be researchable. It must be one single sentence. So please, that's such a silly one to lose a mark for. Make sure it's only one sentence and that it's clearly relevant to the focus point of the scenario or topic. So it must obviously ask a question on the topic. So my suggestion is that you make sure in your question you have three things. First is something about life after COVID, something about technology, and something about education. So you can phrase this any way you want, as long as it makes sense. So the focus question could be, how will we use technology in education in a life after COVID? Okay, don't type that exactly, try and mix it up a little bit, but something along those lines for your focus question, one sentence. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead to this next section. If you look at your assessment rubric, just quickly to get to that. The next few sections we are kind of going to do in one, okay? So the next section talks about the 10 questions that you have to create. All questions must be relevant to the topic. The questions are representative of 3 cognitive levels. So you have those levels that we always have to put in. Is that a level 1 question, level 2 question, level 3 question, or whatever? And it has to be at least 3 levels. All questions are grouped under categories, or we're going to talk about headings from now on. And 3 headings, okay? So there's 2 marks basically for the 3 headings. Then a possible source type for each, which we will get to a little bit further down. You have to have at least 10 questions, and then you must have 2 websites and 1 other source, okay? So this is how we are going to do this. I'm going to start with the headings. Okay, so here I have put in 3 headings for you already. Please know that you can change the headings. You are not compelled to take these 3 headings. These are my suggestions, and you can change it to anything you want, okay? So the first heading I put in here for you is general information. Then you will see I've got 4 subheadings here. Each says question, 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 okay? Now, I want to start by saying that you can change this. All of this is depending on you. I'm giving you a kind of a template, and you have to work with it in the way that suits you. So the way I've set it up is I've got 4 questions now under general information. If you want to have 6 questions under general information, 2 under the next heading and 2 under the heading after that, that's fine. If you only want 2 questions under the general information, just level it out at the end so that you have a total of 10 questions. But this is up to you, and you can move it around as you see fit. And as I said, this is just a template to work with. Okay, so to go to the next heading here, I've put in the second heading as challenges and risks. And you can see here that I've got 3 questions under challenges and risks, and possible solutions. I've also put 3 questions under there for you. Okay, so as I said, mix and match, play around with it, and you make sure that it suits you. Okay, so what we want here is you are going to go to this question 1, delete the actual little heading there, and now start putting in your own question. Okay, so my first question, since it's general information, can be something that doesn't necessarily focus on education and technology too. But be careful that you have to have some questions that touch on everything. So my first question can be, for example, what is the coronavirus? Okay, so let's say you want that as your first question. Now you can do one of 2 things, and just make sure that you understand this. If you don't understand by the end of the explanation, just pause and come and ask me to make sure you understand, because you can work in one of two ways. Either I can take this question now and type it into Google, find an answer and answer the question, okay? Or I can work backwards and I can go to a resource first. And this is where the resources will come in that I've given you already. So I can work from the resources that were provided to you or search each question. But at the end, you only need 2 websites and 1 other source. So keep that in mind as you work. So now I've showed you the first one. So you think of a question first, and then you go and look for the answer on the internet or wherever. Or you can, and now I'm going to go to this research folder quickly. Okay, let's say you go through, please go through them first before you decide. But let's say I want to use this resource. How could I redesign, how could COVID-19 redesign our world? I'm just going to make sure, I don't think this is open in front of you, so I'm just going to go back and open it. Okay, so there is your research document open in front of you. Okay, now just quickly to get back to the cover page, if you want to change that picture, there's some pictures for you here. You can use it from any of your resources, but you have some pictures in your resources. Okay, now let's say, for example, I read through or scan through this document, and I see here that this paragraph has potential for me to create a question from the paragraph. And that's what I mean with working backwards. I open the resource or the research document open in front of me, and I kind of scan through the document and see if I can create my questions from the document. So now I'm not thinking of the question first and then going to look for the answer. I'm looking through the answers and creating questions from it. So if you look at this example here, humans don't cope well with isolation. And then there's some information on multiple studies analyzing the outcomes. It can cause people severe mental health and even post-traumatic stress disorder. It is the people of well-being, what. Okay, so there it is. So now I'm going to create a question from this. I'm going to create a question that asks, how do humans cope with isolation? Or how does isolation affect a person's mental health? Okay, so something along those lines, and that to me fits under the topic or the heading of general information. But you see now with each question, you're going to have to decide under which heading it will be best suited. Okay, so now I can go back to my research document and say, okay, under the general information, I've decided I want to ask, how does isolation affect a person's mental health? Question mark. Please start with a capital letter and end with a question mark. You get marks for that at the end. Professional look, punctuation used, all those type of things. Okay. Now you have a little table under here. Okay. In the print screen row, the idea is that, and please make sure you do it this way and you don't copy and paste or something like that. Okay. Now I'm going to go here on your, oops. On your keyboard, you have a print screen button, okay? So I'm going to print screen. I'm hoping that this will work because this laptop's keyboard is a little bit different from the one I usually work with. Let's see if that worked. No. Okay, let me go back. I'm going to try one more time. If it doesn't work, I'm just going to ask you to do that in your own way. Let's see if that worked. Not do that in your own way, you know, on your keyboard, do the print screen, go back to your research report, say paste. Mine didn't work now. Okay, so you will have a screenshot of that part of the research document pasted here now, okay, in this section. So please crop it so that you don't have all the information that you don't need, and you can just have that answer there. Now you have the answer there as a print screen. So next you are going to go to the answer here and now retype that you have on the print screen, but in your own words, okay? So when I mark, I can see you haven't plagiarized because you have the print screen there, and that you are now going to retype that answer here. And I can see that you've typed it in your own words. You can summarize it somewhat and give, as long as you've answered the question. Okay, so my question, how does isolation affect the person's mental health? Cannot just be one sentence. Badly. No, that's too short. I want that whole little explanation of people can suffer and become depressed and suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. And we've seen that it has an effect on this and that. So that's at least 3 sentences worth. So you can summarize it a little bit, but be careful not to make it too short. And remember that at the end, the question must be answered. Okay. So just one last thing here, by the URL, you can go back to your research document now. Sorry, this thing is a bit slow now. Oh, no. Okay. Back to your research document, you see that there is a URL here. Okay. So I'll just check. Sometimes it gives you a little bit of trouble because you can see now I only have the option of actually following the hyperlink and not to select and copy. So I'm now going to click on it. If you trust this site, allow, then it's going to take me to the actual web page. Supposed to be. Okay, this thing is taking its time now. So in anyway, then you copy the URL and you go back to your research report and you copy it or paste it there so that you have the URL of all your questions. So you can see now that if you work from the resource and you create your questions from this source, let's say you created 4 of your questions from this source, then you will have the same URL for all of them, and that's fine. Okay, it's not a problem. I'm just quickly, this thing is taking way too long now, so I'm going to see if I can go back to my research report to explain the next part to you. Well, here it is. Okay, so just sorry to get back to the URL now. Okay, this is now open in front of me. And now I can go into the little address section here and go and select the whole URL and copy it. And then go back to my research document. And paste. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now you have the URL. So that's also going to help you when you go to your table at the bottom, which I quickly want to mention to you. But I'm just going to show you very quickly and then go into more detail with that a little bit later on. Okay, so now the point is, before you continue to the rest, you have to create your 10 questions. Either look for the answer or create your 10 questions from the resource itself. And then just one last thing before I go to the table at the bottom is the levels. Okay, so as you know, in the past, I've given you examples of questions to create your questions from and so on. So this time you can have this open in front of you. This PowerPoint presentation is also available in your folder. It's called cat presentation something. On slide 56. Slide 56. You have this slide, okay? And this helps you. For a level 1 question, start the questions with those words. For a level 2 question, start the questions with those words. If you have now maybe like paused the video in between and you've already made a few of your questions, and now you realize that they're not from different levels, then just go back, read your question and see if you can rephrase it a little bit so that it starts with one of these words. But if you're only going to start creating your questions now, then as you create your question, for example, how does isolation affect what, like I made that question of mine. Now I think, I actually need to change this back to a level 1, then I can change it to a what. What effect does isolation have on a human? Something like that. Okay, so you can simply just change the question to suit the level that you need it to be, as long as you have questions from each level. So even if you only have one level 2 and one level 3 question, but the rest are level 1s, it's fine. The mark is for you have questions from 3 different levels. So don't overthink it. If you have one of each, you've got one of each. Okay, so I'm going to close this one now and go back to my research report. And I'm scrolling down to the bottom here to these tables. Okay, so this is on page 12 of 16. And I'm quickly going to explain to you what we are going to do here. When you are done with your 10 questions, your 3 headings, your answer for each question, and your URL is pasted there, then you're going to proceed to this section. Now, if you have, and this is now according to the source, okay? If you have 6 sources in the end, that's fine. You are going to choose to cite or give the information of 2 websites and 1 other source, okay? So even if you have 10 at the top, you're only going to do it for 3 here. So let's say you got 2 questions from the first website that you want to give the information of here. Then you're going to paste 2 of the questions here, okay? And now you have at the top already mentioned, or not mentioned, you've made sure that the questions start with the correct word. So you use that little table that I showed you in the PowerPoint presentation to then say, yeah, is it a level 1? Is it a level 2? Is it a level 3? What is it? Okay. And now remember, I told you, if you use your resource and you create your questions, they can go under different headings. So here you can actually just say, this was under the 3rd heading, this was under the 2nd heading, this was under the 2nd heading, or whatever the case may be, okay? So the questions, now we focus on the source. Which questions came from this source? And you paste it in here. You can copy and paste it, né? What levels were they? And then where did you categorize those questions? Under which headings did you put them? For the source type, you can just whatever, okay? You thought you were going to use, the internet for this one. You thought you were going to use newspaper to answer this question. You thought of using the questionnaire for this question, whatever the case may be, okay? You just type something in there so that I can give you the mark, okay? Now, the next thing is you are now going to create a bookmark and a hyperlink to the bookmark for each answer. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do this now. So you're going to go back up to your headings with your questions. Okay, so you click on the first answer here. Not the first answer, sorry. If the question in that table, it obviously has to correlate with the answer. Let me just quickly go back and make sure you understand. Okay. So if my question here is, oops, too far. If my question here is that I need, let me just pause here, sorry. Okay, so let's say my question that I made, how does isolation affect the human, whatever, okay? Let's say that question is over here. Then I actually obviously have to hyperlink to that answer here. So you just have to keep track now of which question's answer goes where. So my first question here, I'm going to say, okay, that answer was for my question 2. So I'm going to go back up to my question 2. And there's my question 2's answer, right? What does isolation, or how does isolation affect a person's mental health? Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm putting my marker here by the answer. Then I'm going to go to insert. And I'm going to go to bookmark here. And now I'm going to give this answer a bookmark. So this is question 2, maybe. Okay. I'm going to give it a name. You can give it, I think the best would stick to the question. It's question 2 here under my heading. So it's question 2, or I can even call it 1.2. That makes the most sense. Question 1.2. And why does it not want me to add? Sort by name, hidden bookmarks, cancel. Let me just try another one. Let's go to this one. Insert bookmark. Question 1. Yeah, there's already a bookmark there. Okay. So let me just try this one again. Let me do this one. Insert bookmark. Well, sorry, you have to say add first. sorry. Okay. So I'm not going to do the whole video again because I made this mistake. I'm going to go to question 2, click there, go to insert bookmark and say you want to add a bookmark, okay? And then go down, back to your answer there. And now we are going to say answer 2, for example. You can name it something else. And I'm going to create a link for this now. And I want to link to a place in this document. And then you'll see under bookmarks, that one should show up. Okay. I'm going to do this again to just make sure that it works out correctly. I'm going to go back up, page up. Let's say question 5 is the next question in that table that I've put, because I've taken question 2 and question 5 from the same resource, just for argument's sake. So I'm going to click here again and say bookmark. Question 5, add, does say. Question 5, add. Now it's there. So you have to type it in and then say add. And I think the problem is the space, okay? So don't put in a space. You can put a space in here, obviously. But when you say insert bookmark, make it question, this is question 6 now. Don't put a space in between these two, question and 6, and then you say add, okay? So then I can go back down to my table and say my next, too far again, sorry. So let's say question 5 was the second question from this resource that I'm going to put in here. And then again, I can say answer number 5, select it, right click on it, say link, and then there is question 5, and I've linked it. You can test it, you can right click on it and say open hyperlink, and then it should jump back to the answer there. Okay. These ones already also count marks for you for phase 3. In phase 3, you get marks for bookmarks and hyperlinks and everything. So now you're sort of sorted with those things too. And you have all your answers here, so you're sorted. Okay. Then the last thing before I end this video, and I'm going to make another one for that last bit with the authority, currency, and so on. I'm going to make a separate video for these ones. But yeah, is a screenshot. You're going to have to delete this screenshot, go to your references, manage sources, you will get this window open in front of you, and you are going to say new. Let me just wait for this thing to finish. Okay, you're going to say new, and then you will get this screen open in front of you. So obviously for a website, let me just quickly see what they call it. There's a website. So you're going to click on website here, and then you have to go now to these 3 sources that you've decided to use and get that information. The author, the name of the web page and the website, the year it was created, the month and the day if you have it. If you just have the year and the month, that's fine. And now remember, you already have the URL at the top, so you can just copy and paste it here. If you don't have one of these pieces of information, then you need to talk to me, okay? Either look for it, or I'm not going to check every single one and make sure that you haven't lied about anything. Let's just call it that. Okay, then you're going to print screen that and paste it here. I will refresh your memory on this part in the next video and make sure you've done everything you need to, but I'm going to go up to there for today, and yeah, good luck.